things and challenge myself and the community with me to examine them critically, and then to determine whether or not what they were talking about, what those initial beliefs were, whether they could remain in the community as something that was worthy, that could uplift them, that could stretch them spiritually or not. And that was the beginning of a long and difficult process for that community of faith. But it was a process that they undertook, recognizing that there would be huge costs, and with a willingness to engage in that as a community, regardless of what those costs might be. So we moved into a time of discernment and a time of test, a time of looking at what it is that we were doing. And our first exposure in the media came in 2004 when I founded the Canadian Centre for Progressive Christianity. I'm supposed to do that flick here. There they are. Canadian Centre for Progressive Christianity. When we pulled together early in 2004 about 25, 28 people just from an email list that I'd been given by Jim Adams in the United States, who had put together the Center for Progressive Christianity in the States. And I had connected with him, and at that point in time, the community that I served was already beyond the Center for Progressive Christianity's statements, their belief statements. But we were at the point where we wanted to write a statement of faith, and we had toyed with using theirs and decided that it was too Jesus-centered for us, so we went beyond it. But Jim sent me the names of people who were here in Ontario who might be interested in participating in a conversation about creating such a network in Canada for progressive Christians. And so we got together to talk about that. And it was a horrific day, end of January, snowy, blizzard conditions. It wasn't just snowy, it was blizzard conditions across most of southeastern Ontario. But those 25 people drove from Haliburton, from St. Mary's, from Sarnia, from Peterborough, from great distances because this was important to them. And we sat in a circle and talked about why they were there. Just how did you manage to get yourself into this chair? What interested you? Why did you arrive here? And it took almost 2 hours to get around the circle. But in that process, we recognized the damage that church has been doing to people, for many of those people, for almost their whole lives. The damage, the shame, the isolation, the anger, the hurt. And we recognized that we needed to do something to reduce the isolation, to bring people together so that they could talk about these things in communities that mostly want you to be silent about these things, and to create the center that could move people into new understandings and new ways of being together, and that could also create resources that could be used in that work. And so that's how the Canadian Centre for Progressive Christianity came into being. But I raised that date because when that happened, that's when we got our first media attention at West Hill. The work that we've been doing had been, the way things happen in organizations like this, you've got a small group of people that make the change, and it affects the large group of people, but most of them are not really involved in the change. Most of you probably didn't decide the bookshelves were going to go on this side of the room. Justin just did it. You're going to live with it. It's not a big deal. And that's what was happening in the congregation that I served. There was a group of people who were working toward making change in the congregation, making sure that the language that we used represented our beliefs, and not beliefs in a supernatural being, but beliefs that we need to live in a radically ethical way together, and using language that would help us to do that, challenge each other to do that, and bring that about. But after that article hit the newspaper, it was in the Toronto Star in late November, people started noticing that things had changed. They'd been in that community, they'd been through the change, it had been going on for about 3 years at that point, 3 or 4 years, and most people hadn't noticed. But once it was in the newspaper on the front page, they noticed. And that was when we started getting flack and challenge and angered people. Because then they noticed that when I did communion, I didn't say a thing about this is the body broken for you or this is the blood shed for you. I just talked about being at a table together and coming to know one another together. And because we come to know one another together, we are challenged to live in right relationship with each other. That's what I talked about. But the accusation that I had suddenly changed the words came when indeed we have videotapes going back for about 10 years prior to that, proving that I never used those words. But people had never noticed that I hadn't used the words. Similarly, the hymns that we sang, people would say, well, how come we have to sing that? Why don't we sing the way it used to be? Well, you've been singing this for 3 years now. Is it a problem? It wasn't until people were told that we weren't using the word God, and we weren't focusing on the stories of Jesus anymore, and we weren't privileging the Bible as the only text that we read from. It was only when they were told that they started noticing that they weren't experiencing it. So the book comes out as an opportunity to get those conversations going in other communities of faith and with other people. So that, as I said to someone earlier, and I've said several times before, not so that the church can survive, because frankly, I don't care if the church as an institution survives. And the National Post articles over these last couple of days saying, should the United Church throw in the towel? I don't know. I don't think the United Church should throw in the towel, though, because I think that church is good at one thing, probably better at one thing than a lot of communities, and that is about making community. Church can provide the opportunity for individuals to come together and have to risk living together, honoring their different perspectives, finding ways to respect those perspectives or to challenge them if they need to be challenged, doing that in community that stretches us to see and understand and know the world in different ways, because someone else comes in with a perspective that was not mine, but that tells me that the world works in a different way for them, and then I have to find ways to honor and understand that. And in community, we can do that. So in community, we can come to understand and to articulate values by which we want to live. And then, in community, we can challenge one another to live up to those values. And that's generally a very difficult thing to do. In fact, it's almost impossible to live up to all your values at any given time. You're constantly trading one off for another. The value of raising brilliant children when the only place that your child with learning disabilities can get education is in another town. So do you drive them there every single day and have the value of your eco-sensitivity compromised? Or do you put them in a school that might not be able to do it? That's a silly example. But there's a lot of examples about how we have to compromise constantly on our values. And when we do it in a big way, holding that in community is a big thing. It's an important thing. It's a real thing. And that's where we get the courage to try again, even though we fail. So, do I care whether the church as an institution survives? No. Do I care that the good that the church could potentially do will survive? Absolutely. I think that that the church can still be a transformative element in people's lives, and from that be a transformative element in people's communities, and so on around the world. The United Church of Canada, indeed, has embraced that challenge on many different occasions. Stepping up to the plate. I use the image of a cocktail party where everybody's at a cocktail party and they're all enjoying it, and they're all, everybody's dressed nicely and blah, 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 and then someone says, wait a minute, something here isn't right. And the United Church has often done that. It's looked around and said, I know this looks to be a social norm to you, but it's not. It's wrong. And so we need to change what the social norm is. And they did that when they ordained women back in 1937. They did that when they started allowing divorced persons to be clergy in the church. They did that when they started recognizing that abortion was a woman's right. They did that when they addressed the whole issue of human sexuality in 1984. They've constantly opened themselves and risked themselves in order to say these social norms are not norms, and they need to be changed. And so I think that they, if any church, has the opportunity to articulate clearly that the Bible is not the authoritative Word of God for all time, I often say that my husband wanted that to be the authoritative word of God for all time, for all people, but Tawag Fat Fap, I call it Tawag Fat in the book, and Tawag Fat Fap just didn't work, so sorry about that, Scott. But the United Church is maybe the only institution called church that has the opportunity to stand up and say the Bible is not the authoritative word of God for all time. And then, once it says that, to begin to critique all those other things that rest upon that statement. The understanding of a theistic God. The understanding that there's an only begotten child of that theistic God. The equation that if you believe in that God sent that child to the earth to be sacrificed for our communal sins or our personal sins, that is true. The hymns, the creeds, the liturgy, everything comes up for grabs if we look at the Bible as a human construction. So the work that I'm about is irritating the United Church, really, and I'm doing it fairly effectively. They haven't actually done anything to silence me at this point in time, and I really don't expect that they will. Because the United Church and my colleagues have been trained, they have the same knowledge that I have, and that dissonance with which they are forced to live and work in the church is eating a lot of them alive. And so the work that I'm about now is about creating for them and for the people in the pews that can't do the translation anymore, to create space for them. I want to just read to you a section from the book at this point in time. This is when I want some of the lights off. Dustin's falling asleep.
At the door.
Which one? Just the ones at the front.
Actually, not the left one. That'll shut the fan down.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. The PowerPoint machine actually doesn't have a pink. It doesn't have red, so the flower, which is actually hot pink, is coming up blue there, right? So everything's a little bit distorted. So use your imagination to get to the right color that you think it should be. In the reading, there's a segment that stands on its own, but I'm going to bracket it with two songs that were written by my partner, Scott Kearns. And I chose those songs because they exemplify what it is that we're trying to do as we move into what I think is a spiritually rich terrain. I should define that word. When I talk about spiritual, I'm not talking about supernatural. I'm talking about just that aspect of our lives that challenges us to live in right relationship. And I believe that living in right relationship is what church is about. I think church is about introducing people to the possibility of living in right relationship and then supporting them in the challenge of living in right relationship. And that's right relationship with ourselves, coming to honor our own beauty, the life within us, to work through all that crap that we've got hanging over our heads from our childhood and become what we fully can become as human beings. I'm talking about being in right relationship with each other, and that just doesn't mean just the people who, dress like you and drink the same kind of coffee. It means an ever-widening circle of responsibility as we understand life and recognize that we need to respect and honor the inherent dignity and worth of all life, which includes, we're now recognizing that moves beyond exclusively human life. Where we have, we stopped it first at men, then we extended it to boys, and then we extended it to women, and we've continued to extend it, and we have to continue to extend it and take responsibility for living in right relationship with that. And then right relationship with the planet means recognizing that we're in very dire circumstances, and we need to live in radically different ways in order to honor that. So that's what I mean by radically ethical living, which is what I think the spiritual quest is about. There's going to be pictures up here. I've said that they're blue. If you want to close your eyes instead of looking at the pictures, if it's easier for you to listen that way, then go ahead. Basically, to set at the center of someone's life those things that one holds most worthy, we used to place God in that space. But now, if we place anything that we hold worthy, those values, those things that we don't want to risk losing, that we would, under the right circumstances, risk our lives to preserve, to place those, and to challenge ourselves to live in deep reverence for the sacredness of those things, ideals, values, beliefs. That's to ensure that they're not compromised or damaged, at risk of being lost or mitigated in the choices that one makes in his or her life. That's what the spiritual task is. The things that we name as worthy, too often in the church, have been supernatural things. But they certainly don't need to be supernatural at all. Indeed, I think that it's dangerous if we recognize that they are. They needn't be associated with any particular doctrine. They needn't to be religious. They need only be the truths that one resonates with at the center of one's soul, and which calls one to recognize the beauty of their own life and their life that has been to that time, and what they can offer to the world and to one another beyond that. My light makes a better mouse. Okay. It's not making a mouse pad at all.
You would like us to click it for you?
No, because you'll never keep up with me. Sorry. Dustin, didn't we work this out before?
I think you're not.
I don't have a second. I'll get rid of this first. No, that's good. It's supposed to be. But now something else is supposed to come. There we go. Okay, the quote. Okay. Any more?
The gods are angry at you.
They are. I'm gonna get hit with a bolt of lightning. But I won't blame God. Oh, come on. Okay. Last time I had to read it like this. There. Okay. There's the end of the quote. Okay. There we are. Oops, I hit it twice. Okay. We who move beyond the traditional boundaries of Christianity are often thought of as not believing in anything. Beyond the beliefs that have divided us for millennia are beliefs that challenge us to hallow all that life is. It is our responsibility to seek these beliefs out, to share them with one another, to embrace them, and to try to live by them. The following words that I'm going to read, which are from the book, were originally written in an attempt to defend the work that was unfolding in the congregation I served, at a time when that work was being challenged by others in the church. I offer them now as an invitation to conversation, an invitation to open yourself to what they might offer, and in turn for you to offer as you invite others into this most important work. And this is one of Scott's songs. May all that is worthy within me move me to grow beyond where I have grown. May all that is worthy around me inspire me to go beyond where I have gone. May all that is worthy in others That's helpful. No, why not? Okay. I don't know why this is only half working. May all that is worthy in others move me to care beyond how I have cared. Strengthened in my spirit, moving past my doubts, embracing opportunities for reaching out, making the difference I can make for the sake of all that's worthy. Precious is the life we lead. Precious is the... Can I take this off? Okay. I'm going to move, sorry. Let me come down here. This will look better. Okay. Precious is the life we lead. Precious is the care we need. Precious is the hope that can exceed our dreams as we are strengthened in our spirit, moving past our doubts, embracing opportunities for reaching out, making the difference we can make for the sake of all that's worthy. We believe in the sanctity of life that is often experienced in ways that cannot be measured and that far outstrip what we can see and taste and touch. We believe that there is much in this world that challenges the sanctity of life and that it must be defied. We believe that defiance to be very hard work and that it takes all the shoulders in a community to bear the burden of the responsibility. We believe our experience of the deep sacredness of life is dynamic and cannot be named. We believe that the Bible is a human construction, and it is, therefore, full of both human promise and human error. We believe that no humanly constructed book can be the authoritative Word of God, and that we who recognize this are responsible to challenge such claims and behavior that suggests such claims, particularly where we find it in our own tradition. We believe that some of the stories of the activity of the divine in the world that are collected in the Bible are rich with metaphor and meaning and can enrich our understanding of ourselves, each other, and creation. And we believe that much of what is described in the Bible as the activity of God is destructive of relationship and equality, that it is tribal and divisive, that despite the best attempts that the authors were making to describe their experience of the divine, they have created a legacy of judgment, horror, and despair, and we no longer choose to burden ourselves with that legacy. We believe it is wrong to call such words holy or sacred. We believe that some of the words attributed to a man called Jesus, myth or reality, are words that can challenge us to seek alternate ways to live together and break down humanly constructed barriers. And we believe that some of the words attributed to that man are words that can divide and destroy relationship, not just by the way they are used, but by how they are recorded. We believe they describe a concept of hell that was very real to that man, but is no longer relevant to us. And we believe that, too often, his words have been used to imprison people in that hell, a place only the Bible and other religious texts continue to describe and make real in this world. We believe that we have the right and responsibility to free ourselves of those concepts that are no longer meaningful and relevant for us, because we do not believe that he was speaking as the only begotten Son of God, but as one who sought, as we do, to understand the sacred reality that he embraced and we call life. We believe that all that is constructed upon the Church's claim that the Bible is the authoritative Word of God must be questioned because of the error of that claim. We believe that the Church's creeds, doctrine, liturgy, ecclesiology, sacraments, hymns, and theology are based upon it. We believe they should be assessed for their ability to support our attempts to live in right relationship with ourselves, each other, and the earth, honoring the sanctity of life as we each experience it. We believe that though there are costs associated with such work, and that much we have loved will be lost, that we must accept those costs, grieve openly, and with love, caring and supporting one another, leave behind that which would encumber our work. We believe we are gifted to create new understandings that can be rich and meaningful. And we believe that these understandings, too, must be questioned as time and experience lay hold of them. We believe that there are many who have spoken of or through their sacred realities in ways that open us to our tasks of building right relationship and loving from the core of our being. We believe it is right and proper to nurture ourselves with their words, with our own words, with the ways that we and others see and know and celebrate the divine in our own lives. We believe that we are light to the world, to ourselves, to each other, and that the world and all its inhabitants can be light to us. We believe that our values will guide our choices, and that our choices are the incarnation of our beliefs. We believe that because this is so, it is far more important for us to struggle to develop solid values for ourselves and society in order that we can strengthen the reality of love in the world than it is for us to be conversant in ancient theological terms. We believe that our experience of the sanctity of life is best expressed as and in love. This next song was written for the launch of the Canadian Centre for Progressive Christianity, and it really gathers all of the impetus for that movement in the words. By the light of the sun and the glow of the moon, we can see the natural world all around us. The world of the Spirit is a world of mystery, and natural light won't help us to see. In the light of love, our lives have meaning. In the light of love, our purpose shines. Wherever there is justice to be dared, compassion to be shared, this is our calling in the light of love. So lift it up, hold it high, write it clear across the sky. Burn it deep within your soul. Live it well and live it whole. For nothing more is needed, but nothing less will do. For nothing else can take the place of love. In the light of love, our lives have meaning. In the light of love, our purpose shines. Wherever there is justice to be dared, compassion to be shared, this is our calling in the light of love. In the light of love, our lives have dignity. In the light of love, our purpose shines. To celebrate the beauty everywhere with deep respect and care, this is our calling in the light of love. So lift it up, hold it high, write it clear across the sky, burn it deep within your soul. Live it well and live it whole, for nothing more is needed, but nothing less will do, for nothing else can take the place of love. Not our forms, not our creeds, neither plans nor empty deeds. No, nothing else can take the place of love. Not our status, not our health, not inheritance or wealth. No, nothing else can take the place of love. So lift it up, hold it high, write it clear across the sky, burn it deep within your soul. Live it well and live it whole, for nothing more is needed, but nothing less will do, for nothing else can take the place of love. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing else could ever take the place of love. To these words I would add these few. We believe that there are no supernatural beings, forces, energies necessary for or even mindful of our survival. What we have dreamt in the past have been dreams. They have enriched us and challenged us to seek out what we needed to survive. What we need now cannot be found in those dreams. We need to dream again, recognizing that our visions, our ideas, our choices, our challenges all come from within us, not somewhere else. We are our creators, and we have the challenge before us to create a future for this planet in which love, made incarnate through justice and compassion, is the supreme value we share. What we create must come from a deep and rich desire to connect ourselves, one to the other, to be responsible for each other in ways we have been called to by so many brilliant speakers, leaders, poets, and prophets so many times before. Believing as I do that all religious, philosophical, and ideological understandings must be challenged by their adherents, so that we might all move into a place where foundational beliefs are shared and held in common, reviewed and revised as necessary, challenged and changed when appropriate, I extend the confrontation that is this book. May it irritate us all into the growth we so disturbingly need. Thank you. Apologies for the mouse fiasco. Is there a microphone for other people to use?
Yep, I think that's active, so as usual,
If people
please
would like to ask questions.
line up over there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, give it a try. This will probably be